Hey guys, Bugcat7 here. Okay, it is Thursday, August 1st, 2019, and I want to thank you for visiting the Stonewall Research channel here on YouTube. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And if you would kindly click the like button, guys, that would be great. Help support the channel. Thank you very much. All right, well, in this video, we're going to talk about red ochre burials, quote unquote giants, what we like to call large hominids on this channel, okay, for very good reasons. Okay, please watch my videos on the large hominids that I have on my channel. And we're going to talk about the first Iron Age, okay? So, but, why is this so important? Why do we got to talk about this? And we're going to continue reading in this article by Jason Jarrell and Sarah Farmer because it's just excellent. And we have to get to the main and critical parts that I've been reading from in my past videos, but there's a lot to talk about in between because we're doing an analysis of these articles, as I frequently do on my channel with certain things, okay? Besides, I have my own research, all that kind of stuff, which you can see on my channel, and please do. And that deals with the stone walls, and these cultures of the past, like the Adena, have everything to do with it. And why is it so important, okay? Because apparently it seems, and this is showing elongated skulls in Egypt, okay? And, these representations, and, I guess people have written about it and talked about it, and, Brian Foster's talked about it, and then you have, like, the Paracas people, okay? And all these other peoples dug up in the Americas, North, Central, and South America, and found around the Black Sea and China. I mean, they've just found everywhere on this planet, okay? So, look, I don't think you have to, be a rocket scientist to figure this out, okay? So there was this culture, apparently, of these people with these weird skull shapes and different ones, apparently, because the Adenas are not like that, and the Beaker people, but, they have similarly elongated skulls, not just simply larger, but, a whole different shape, size, form, etc. Okay, not Homo sapien. Okay, Homo sapiens are found, and this is an assumption made by them. And look, duh, get a clue. Okay, it may not be brachiocephalic at all. They're making, that's an assumption that they're making. They don't have photos from that time or any written record of it or anything. They're guessing because it can't possibly be any other way. These obviously have to be Homo sapiens, but, they're just some deformed people and, morbidly so, or whatever the heck they're trying to, rationalize it in some way because, otherwise there's a different picture of the past that they don't know anything about. And they can't have that. So somehow they have to make the square peg fit in the round hole. Doesn't matter if they try to shove it through or whatever without carving down the sides, but it just doesn't fit. But they don't care about that, you see. So we're talking about these people who may have survived and brought along with them certain knowledge with them that they tried to pass down to human beings, of which the Native Americans may have been the first human beings, okay, on this planet, because it seems like the fusion may have gone from the Americas out to the rest of the world, at least in historical times. Okay, and where this culture was and who knows, and the sea levels and how low they were in the past, maybe people could have walked across some of these areas, and that's what it seems so in many areas on the planet, if we are to take what they say seriously in the mainstream about these lower sea levels in the past. And how low could they go? We, make certain assumptions, and they couldn't have been lower in the past. They might have been. Who knows? We don't know, but it seems like the water came from somewhere, and it's so curious that the rings of Saturn are made out of identical water, that H2O, that could be found on Earth, and NASA didn't expect that for some reason. So whatever they do, they never expect the results because they're wrong about what they're looking at, because they're going by Einstein's, theories about cosmology, etc., and, mechanics, physics in the universe, and he was wrong, unfortunately, for the people who believe in Einstein's. Okay, so look, what is ochre anyway? So let's talk about this a little bit because there's some interesting stuff in here before we even get into the rest of the article by Jason Jarrell and Sarah Farmer that I want to finish up in this video for my last three videos. Please do watch them. Okay, so let's talk about ochre a little bit. What's ochre? Ochre, taken from the ancient Greeks, or ochre, American English, is a natural clay earth pigment, which is a mixture of ferric oxide and varying amounts of clay and sand. It ranges in color from yellow to deep orange or brown. It is also the name of the colors produced by this pigment, especially a light brownish yellow. A variant of ochre containing a large amount of hematite, okay, iron ore, very good iron ore, or dehydrated iron oxide, has a reddish tint known as quote unquote red ochre, or in some dialects, ruddle. Okay, so red ochre is what we're talking about, this dehydrated iron oxide. The word ochre also describes clays colored with iron oxide, deriving during the extraction of tin and copper. Isn't that interesting? These metals that were first used by the Paleolithic people, Neolithic people, people in the age of bronze and brass, and they knew about this stuff and the iron oxide derived from it. So I'm beginning to think that people in the past knew a lot about iron and knew about iron, but was not a preferred metal until they could improve it to a point where it didn't oxidize so fast. These other metals oxidize, but they seem with not as much care needed to do with them as you needed to do with iron. So there's a good possibility that we're talking about people who knew about this, okay? And we're talking about the people in the past with elongated skulls, these Egyptian people, okay, and the people who spread out around the world, okay? They may have been carrying some knowledge with them about iron production in the past, and they're trying to think about what the symbolism is with the red ochre, and they can't quite figure it out, okay, and what it represents. They're just guessing at a lot of things, and it's just all different kinds of guesses. So my guess is, okay, we're talking about an ancient advanced civilization. This could be derived from that in some way, and red ochre being, product of this iron extraction or whatever. But maybe they lack the rest of the information to do anything else with it. Okay, or they may have still been doing it. Then all the dates are wrong and everything else, and which is it's so easily anticipated because, they have the margin of error and carbon dating is just off the hook. All right, so it makes you wonder. Okay, so just let's talk about it a little bit more here. Okay, and it just says red ochre takes its reddish color from the mineral hematite, which is an anhydrous iron oxide. So can't absorb water. In prehistory and early history, the use of ochre is particularly intensive. It is not unusual. Okay, I want you to read along with me with this. Okay, this stupid thing will focus. Okay. It is not an unusual to find a layer of the cave floor impregnated with a purplish red to a depth of 8 inches. Okay, 8 inches. The size of these ochre deposit raises a problem not yet solved. So they don't know how these people were able to extract so much of the iron oxide and to make the red ochre. They don't know what process and this is 1968, research in 1968, which still stands. The Art of Prehistoric Man in Western Europe. They're giving this in Wikipedia here. All right, maybe a truth nugget, as Matt likes to call them, okay? The coloring is so intense that that practically all the loose ground seems to consist of ochre. One can imagine that the Aurignacians regularly painted their bodies red, dyed their animal skins, coated their weapons, and sprinkled the ground of their dwellings, and that a paste of ochre was used for decorative purpose in every phase of their domestic life. We must assume no less if we are to account for the veritable mines of ochre on which some of them lived. Okay, so this is inexplicable to them. Okay, how they were able to produce all of this red ochre. Okay? Why? Because they had advanced knowledge. All right? Because they come from a antediluvian, more advanced civilization. Okay? And they brought some of that knowledge with them because they were different. They were not Homo sapiens. They're not brachiocephalic. They're dolichocephalic. But see, they don't want to admit that because, that means that the whole past is different than what they've been taught. And that they're just as smart as anybody else. Their degrees aren't worth the paper they're printed on. Iron oxide is one of the most common minerals found on Earth. There is much evidence that yellow and red ochre pigment was used in prehistoric and ancient times by many different civilizations on different continents. Pieces of ochre engraved with abstract designs have been found in the site of the Blombos Cave in South Africa, dated to around 75,000 years ago. Isn't that interesting? Okay. And if there was some primitive society in the past, okay, whenever that was using whatever it was, okay, simultaneously, a completely more advanced civilization by countless, times could be existing at the same time, just like what happened in the recent millennia and centuries, okay? Whenever you hear about, oh, they found some site in the past of some primitive people, that doesn't mean anything. During that time period, whenever that was, there could be, extremely more advanced civilizations existing at the same time. You have to think about these things, okay? The practice of ochre painting was prevalent in ancient Australia. Pleistocene burials with red ochre date as early as 40,000 BP. Ochre played a role in expressing symbolic ideologies of the earliest arrivals to the continent. Okay, so again, what I'm saying is that, the iron oxide that was, being, revered here is a remnant of iron production in the antediluvian past. Okay, but they're honoring it. They don't know why, and they don't know how to produce iron because they don't know what it's for other than this. You see, they're the survivors, and you got to think about it. If there was survivors, they all died out. They left their knowledge to other people, but it doesn't mean that other people in the society knew it, or they may have been killed, or who knows. It seems like that's what happened in the past as well. Okay, we found out that all of these civilizations that took root in the South America, one by one, the new rulers changed the history to what their liking, whatever it was. So, their historical accounts are not reliable in some instances. Okay. So, in Wales, the Paleolithic burial called the Red Lady of Paviland, from its coating of red ochre, has been dated around 33,000 years before present. Paintings of animals made with red and ochre pigments have been found in Paleolithic sites at Pec Merle in France, 25,000 years old, and the cave of Altamira in Spain, 16,000 to 15,000 BC. The cave of Lascaux has an image of a horse colored with yellow ochre, estimated to be 17,300 years old. It's just funny that the renderings of the animals in Lascaux in the cave there are awfully well done and realistic. Okay, they're not little stick figures of horses and stuff you see in all the petroglyphs and all. They're very extremely realistic paintings done by somebody who is expert artist. Okay, and most people today couldn't do it. All right, so these were supposedly cavemen, supposedly, or survivors from some civilization that got destroyed. According to some scholars, Neolithic burials used red ochre pigment symbolically, either to represent a return to the earth or possible as a form of ritual rebirth, in which the color symbolizes blood and the great goddess. Well, maybe. You can assume anything. What are they basing that on? Maybe in one culture, because apparently red ochre was used all over the place. They neglect to mention that in the Wikipedia article about it. In ancient Egypt, yellow was associated with gold, which is considered to be eternal and indestructible. So you're doing in ancient Egypt. The skin and bones of gods were believed to be made of gold. The Egyptians used yellow ochre extensively in tomb painting, though occasionally they used orpiment, which made a brilliant color but was highly toxic since it was made with arsenic. In tomb paintings, men were always shown with brown faces, women with yellow ochre or gold faces. Red ochre in ancient Egypt was used as a rouge or lip gloss for women. Okay, ochre color lines were also discovered on the unfinished obelisk at the northern region of Aswan Stone Quarry. Okay, so in any case, I'm not going to go through all this stuff because I want to get to the article. All right, so just keep all this stuff in mind. Okay, was there anything else in this that I needed to? No, I don't think so. But oh yeah, they just say in North America. Okay, they say what kind of people it's associated, red ochre people and all, but no mention of the Adena or any other place that ochre burials were found. You don't hear about any of it in here. Why? Just I don't understand. It says its use was widespread at times in the eastern woodlands cultural area of Canada and U.S. The red ochre people complex refers to a specific archaeological period in the woodlands, 1000 to 400 BC, which, is New World time. Okay, it's new, so that's it. Okay, so here's where Jarrell and Farmer in their article go a bit further into it, and, their research is excellent. So let's talk about the rest of this article here because it's just fascinating. Okay. The discovery of giant skeletons in several caves around the U.S. has been a popular subject in recent years. Less known are the documented finds on record from the Dark Zone in Europe. In the late 1800s, a series of unusual remains were found at the Mentone Caves on the coast of Italy. The skeletons were the subject of an article in the November 1895 issue of Popular Science. According to the article, in 1884, a male skeleton of, quote, of gigantic size, being 6 feet and 9.5 inches in height, unquote, was found. In 1892, 3 more skeletons were found, 2 which measured 6 feet 6.5 inches. Okay, it was probably children, while the third was 6 feet 10.5 inches, estimated to withstand about 7 feet 4 inches while living. The crania are described as being of unusual size and thickness, with quote-unquote unusually large orbital cavities and quote-unquote large teeth. The quote front nearly as large as molars, unquote. Skeletons were interred on their sides in quote a cyst or rude dolmen, unquote, and were covered in red ochre. Okay, iron oxide. I think that people in the past knew a lot more about iron than we think, and it just was not a preferred metal. Artifacts include flint blades, shells, and deer teeth. Neolithic axes have also been found, but they made no mention of what size they were. And there's also this repeated thing with these large axes being found in burials. And I went through it with my research on William A. Ritchie in New York and what he found here. And I will talk about that a little bit. Okay, so here's a picture of a gigantic quote-unquote skeleton in situ from the Mentone Caves in Popular Science in 1895. So this is one of these huge people that, they say don't exist in the past. There's human, but, just weird for no reason, and they can't explain it, and it doesn't matter. They don't care. They're not explaining it. Because, people are supposed to be an average size for some reason, for lots of different reasons that they give for being that way, but, these are anomalies for some reason. A similar cave burial was found at the Glamorganshire, Wales in 1824. According to W.D. Dawkins, a body of a quote-unquote gigantic statue was found with shell and ivory artifacts, a bone all and covered in red ochre, iron oxide. Dating the Beaker and Adena culture. So here's where they get a little bit into it and say why the reasons they give that they can't be similar because it took place at different time periods. At a nearer time period with the Adena people and an older one with the Beaker people. And, Jarrell and Farmer here are trying to dismiss that idea. Dating the Beaker and Adena cultures. One of the criteria commonly used in dismissing theoretical connections between the Beaker and Adena cultures is the discrepancy of dating. The initial spread of Beaker people around Western Europe occurred around 2400 BC, while generic sources meant for public consumption, such as textbooks, websites, and interpretive pamphlets, placed the Adena culture at around 500 BC. However, this chronological discrepancy gradually vanishes with a review of the complete historical and archaeological data. To begin with, we will trace the cultural legacy of the zone Beaker culture packaged down to the Iron Age. The Unisys culture is divided into quote-unquote older and quote-unquote younger phases. The earlier phase lasts from about 2200 BC to 2000 BC, while the quote-unquote younger phase commences and lasts until 18 to 1700 BC, when the descendants formulate the Tumulus and Cercinic cultures. The Tumulus culture phase lasts from roughly 1700 to 1200 BC before being succeeded in the early Iron Age by the Urnfield, 1300 BC, Hallstatt, 800 to 500 BC, and Latin cultures identified as the Keltoi of ancient history. Okay. Historically, the cultural genealogy of the Beaker people, including tumulus and earthwork construction, continues in one form or another for over 2,000 years after the initial appearance in the Chalcolithic EBI. At the same time, a review of radiocarbon dates pushes the Adena further into the past. Okay, so you see that, further into the past. Okay, like most of the sites in the Americas, always further into the past. Okay, and their radiocarbon dating sucks. It's no good. Never was. They're always looking for better ways to do it because it's no good. A radiocarbon date of 1200 to 1100 BC was attained from the lower level of the Topner Mound in Ohio. Also from Ohio, the Klein 822 BC, Arthur James 803 plus or minus 115 BC, Munson Springs 833 and 764 BC, William H. Davis 1405 plus or minus 60 years BC. Mounds have all yielded very early dates. A date of 1635 BC was attained from the lower level of the Cresap Mound in West Virginia, which Don Dragu determined to be too early for Adena. The Dover Mound in Kentucky produced a date of around 780 BC from an upper tomb in the structure. Two red ochre tumuli at the Morton Mound Group in Illinois have been dated to 1200 BC. Artifacts of the red ochre culture are noted as mixed with those of the Adena at several mounds at the Turkey River Ring in Iowa, at a circular ditched enclosure. Two mounds inside of the enclosure yields dates of 600, Mound 38, and 800 BC, Mound 39. In addition to obvious culture and artifact similarities, red ochre is considered to be ancestral to Adena due to the brachiocephalic crania found in red ochre graves. So they're saying they're miraculous, but they can't say anything else. They don't want to get too far deep into the woods, I guess, or whatever. But look, it's not brachiocephalic, okay? It's dococephalic, okay? They just don't want to admit it, okay? Different kind of humanoid. That's all right? Too bad for you. That's it. Got enough of this evidence to just say it is. Who cares what they say? Okay, this is a brachiocephalic red ochre skull, Wisconsin archaeologists. Okay. Many flat grave cemeteries from the late Archaic period include Adena or Adena-like remains. At the Indian River sites in New York State, cash blades, gorgets, copper implements, and red ochre were found in contexts dating to 2448 plus or minus 260 years BC. Okay, so that's going way, way back there in New York, and I think a lot of the skeletons in New York and New England go way, way back, these rather large hominid skeletons. And, I go through some of this stuff in my video, Prove It, guys, right? I don't know if you've seen my video, Prove It, or not, but you can see right here. Okay, here's some of the things that they found, and I was saying to Clint Steele, some of these things they can't account for. They don't know what this is for. They don't know what this is for. I put little stars next to the ones that they couldn't figure out what they were for. Okay, and they found these rather large implements and artifacts in these graves here that, an average sized person could not use. Okay, and Ritchie, the archaeologist, the head archaeologist of New York State, blows it off as being just votive offerings or whatever. He's not making a connection here and doesn't want to, I guess, or didn't want to, or whatever, but they have never found a skeleton from the Paleo-Indian phase. That's what Ritchie said, okay? So they've never found a skeleton, according to him, all right? But there were skeletons found here in New York State. They attribute them to the Dina, I guess, or whatever, but apparently from the time period that they did, and it could be a mistake. It's a mistake. They don't know what they're talking about. All these time periods are wrong. It's all New World, New World, New World, okay? I go over the archaeology